Even though there was a change of scenery for this program last season, the UTSA Roadrunners, after back-to-back Conference USA titles, well, they continue to be one of the better teams in the Group of Five realm and one of the better teams in their new conference, the American Athletic, last season, as they were right in the thick of things competing for a conference title, and that is the goal yet again for Jeff Traylor's program in 2024. There are some holes to fill, but is UTSA still going to be one of the better Group of Five teams we have in the nation? You're about to find out what I think here in this video. What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today. Welcome to my channel and welcome to prediction season. It's where I predict all 134 FBS level college football teams. It means I'm doing your favorite team, and if you're as big of a college football nerd as I am, you have to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. We are so close to getting done with the Power 4 teams, only 3 left, and then of course we move on to all the Group of 5 programs. I've done a couple of them. You know I like to show love to the Group of 5, and I'm mixing one in here. The way that you can show your love to this channel, interact with it in any way you can. Thank you so much for watching the videos. That's probably the biggest way to help support the channel. It supports in more ways you can even imagine. Subscribing, another big way, but you can also like, comment, share, and again, just interacting with it in any way at all helps support what I do here on YouTube. We're going to take a deep dive into UTSA's offense, into their defense, and at the end of the video, we'll dive on into the Roadrunner football schedule and give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. A couple more things before we do start, though, because right over here are going to be the stats a team put up either offensively or defensively last season. And, of course, for your viewing pleasure, right below the team's logo, I have put the team's coaching staff. I'll waste no more time. Let's dive on into talking about the UTSA Roadrunners. You have to dive on into the most important position on the field first. That is the quarterback position, and boy, is UTSA ever losing a good one and a staple here in San Antonio over the past however many years. The 7th-year quarterback last season, Frank Harris, has finally run out of college eligibility. He has moved on to things other than football. He has graduated. He had some really phenomenal seasons, and last year, well, despite, or I should say, compared to what he's done with this program in years past, last year, definitely a down year for Frank Harris. 2,506 yards, 18 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions. And I say that that's a down year from him, or a down year for him, I should say, because in 2021, he threw for 3,100 yards. In 2022, he threw for 4,000 yards. Last season just didn't have the same kind of production, but nonetheless, very experienced, very good weapon at the quarterback position. Frank Harris will definitely be missed and will forever be a legend within this UTSA program. So who is your quarterback going to be this year? Well, it's likely going to be the son of former NFL quarterback Josh McCown. That's Owen McCown. He did get some solid playing time last season, 442 yards on 58 pass attempts. He completed 43 of them, by the way. That's 74.1% for all you math nerds out there. 4 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Yes, there is some development to be made with him, but unquestionably to me, he's going to be that starting quarterback for UTSA this season. I think he has through-the-roof potential. I'm not going to predict whether or not he's going to be better than Frank Harris because those are some big shoes to fill, but I think Owen McCown, as long as he can develop, the touchdown-to-interception ratio doesn't get crazy high, and by crazy high, I mean he's throwing a lot of interceptions and not a lot of touchdowns. Well, you're definitely going to get some solid quarterback play out of him this season. Eddie Lee Marburger is back on this team as well. He threw 47 passes last year, 3 touchdowns, only 1 interception for him. So he's going to be battling out for that starting job as well. Again, I believe McCown is going to win it, but Marburger could still see playing time in 2024 easily, while Demetrius Davis is a transfer coming into this program. He is a transfer coming in from, I'll check it here one second. He's coming in from Alabama State. Has had some pretty good seasons over there with that FCS program. Probably going to be more of a depth piece than anything in this quarterback room. You want to go ahead and take a look at what the skill position room holds for UTSA this season? All right, let's go ahead and do it. Kadrick Cobbs is a running back who had some, well, okay, let's be honest, was more of a depth piece in this position last year. Only 12 carries for him. Did have some pretty solid runs in those 12 carries, but was a depth piece nonetheless. And as such, saw the writing on the wall. Probably wasn't going to see much playing time here in 2024. He is playing for a new program this upcoming season. But that means you do get pretty much every key piece in this running back room back. Kavorian Barnes was your leading rusher at 715 yards, 6 touchdowns last season. Robert Henry led the team with 11 rushing touchdowns last season. season, 588 yards for him. And Rocco Griffin, a former Wake Forest Demon Deacon, on 91 carries, had 483 yards and 6 touchdowns last season. Yes, Frank Harris was a dual threat quarterback. He had 323 yards, 4 touchdowns last season. But you get Barnes, Henry, and Griffin coming back. And all three of those guys, much like we saw last year, will all get their carries in 2024. You do lose a stud at the wide receiver position. He has gone off to the NFL. There have been some really good wide receivers to come through UTSA in seasons prior, and Joshua Cephas is no different. 1,151 yards on a team-high 89 catches. Also led the team with 10 receiving touchdowns last season. Obviously, he was your leading receiver. You also do lose your second leading receiver in Tyke Ogle-Kellogg, as he has run out of eligibility, so no more college football for him. 575 yards on a team's second high, 7 receiving touchdowns last season. So a lot of production with those two guys are gone, but those are really the only notable losses in this pass catching room. Wide receivers, tight ends, you get a lot of guys coming back. We'll start out with the wide receivers. Devin McEwen will be back, 546 yards, 3 touchdowns on 42 catches for him last season. Willie McCoy, DeCorian Clark, Chris Carpenter, and David Amater will all be back in this wide receiver room. And you get some pieces coming in through the transfer portal that probably likely, or I should say more likely than not, will get a lot of really good reps and might end up being top 5 receivers for this UTSA team here in 2024. That's J.J. Sparkman coming over from Texas Tech, likely to play the bigger role of the 2 transfers, and DJ Allen is coming over from TCU. So 2 players that are going to remain in state, but drop down from the Power 4 to the Group of 5 level. Still with a really good UTSA team, they will add much needed depth to this wide receiver room. Tight end room, again, you don't lose anybody. Oscar Cardenas does come back, 280 yards, 2 touchdowns for him last season. He'll be backed up, as he was last year, by Houston Thomas and Dan Dishman. So then when you talk about this team's offensive line, there are a couple graduates on the offensive line. Terrell Haynes and Ernesto Almaraz have both run out of eligibility, but you still get Venli Tatafu, Makai Hart, Corey Godinette, Walker Beatty, Buffalo Cruz, Cruzy, however you pronounce that last name again, I apologize for mispronunciations, and Demetrius Allen, all back to this offensive line, while C.J. James, Kamar Missouri, and Jalen Garth are all transfers coming in. C.J. James, probably the guy that's likely going to get a starting role there, but nonetheless, you'll see a combination of those, 8 and 9 guys on the offensive line here in 2024. Probably C.J. James, and then a mix of the 6 guys that you saw there as returners for UTSA likely will end up being that starting 5. So overall, when you talk about the offense here for UTSA, look, it was very, very good last season. You saw they rushed for over 170 yards per game. They were one of the best third down teams in Group of 5, if not the entire country last season. They drove down the field. They scored points. And when you lose a very experienced quarterback like Frank Harris, those definitely are big shoes to fill. Owen McCown, is definitely going to need some development here. And I do think that he's going to see his struggles early on this season. But as he develops and as he sits into the Jeff Traylor system, at the end of the day, I think Owen McCown's going to put up some pretty stats. He's got a great group of running backs, really good wide receivers with him, McEwen, Sparkman, Allen, McCoy, Clark. I think the Cardenas at tight end, pretty solid offensive line coming back here as well. They only allowed 25 sacks last season, and while you like to see that number go down, overall I think it'll be a very successful year yet again for Jeff Traylor's offense in 2024. When you talk about this team's defense, well, it does lose a lot of guys, especially high key contributors off this defense from last season. And just fixing up some formatting really quickly. Again, very good defense for UTSA last season. You probably want to see them allow fewer points, but that can be worked on this season. Again, you lost a lot of very talented pieces, though. We'll start out with the defensive line, where 2 huge key contributors from this team are gone. Brandon Matterson, 14 tackles, but had 5 sacks out of so 5 of his 14 tackles last year were sacks where he got to the quarterback. Rightfully so. He is off to the NFL. And a future NFL player in Trey Moore, listen to this stat line. Leading tackler among defensive linemen last season as an edge rusher, 45 tackles, had 14 sacks, 3 pass defended, and even had an interception last season. Trey Moore is an exceptional player. He's going to go play for a team that projects to be one of the best in college football this season. Staying in state, he'll go over to play for the Texas Longhorns. So what does your defensive line hold for UTSA in 2024? Well, Joe Evans is coming back. Joe Evans had 18 tackles and 2 sacks last season. Osiris Brown, Brandon Brown, Nick Booker Brown, and Ronald Triplett all will be coming back to this UTSA defense. I just knew there were too many Browns on screen, so I'll run through the defensive linemen again. Joe Evans, Osiris Simon, Brandon Brown, Nick Booker Brown, and Ronald Triplett. There we go. I sincerely apologize for that. It is Osiris Simon, not Osiris Brown. I will go ahead and fix that mistake right now. But nonetheless, all five of those guys, fairly solid players for this team last season. Nick Booker Brown, I was going to dive on and talk about stats here. Nick Booker Brown had 2.5 sacks for this team last season. You can list off many other pieces here that are coming back to the defensive line. Ty Leonard is another of them that I just don't have here on the board, but 10 tackles, 2 sacks last season. And again, many other pieces return to this defensive line, much more than the 5 that I have listed right there. You're going to have a pretty good defensive line, even despite Matterson's and Moore's leave here in 2024. Linebacker room, really only notable loss that I could find was that of Avery Morris. Really good linebacker for this team last year at 45 tackles and 2 sacks, so that's a really solid production that you do lose out of that room, but otherwise you get pretty much everybody back. You are going to be getting Jamal Ligon back, who for some reason is down at the bottom of that list when he should be at the top because he was the leading tackler among linebackers last year. 62 tackles, 1 pass defended. Martavius French is going to be back as well. Third leading tackler with 61 tackles, a sack and a half, 3 pass defended for him. Pair him with Danyai Taylor, Jamori Robinson, and Owen Pee-wee, as well as some very, very notable transfers. Kendrick Blackshire is a former Alabama Crimson Tide member that transferred to Texas, now is over here playing for UTSA, and Brevin Randall coming in as well. But Ian Jackson may very well get the most playing time out of any linebacker transfer. He also hailing from the Alabama Crimson Tide. So a lot of talented players come in, a lot of talented players come back. Makes for a good defensive front 7 here for UTSA this season, now that we've talked about the linebacker room. Defensive back 4 or your defensive back room, the secondary does lose a lot of talented pieces in both regards. Cornerback position, well, you lose a very, very talented player right here in Cam Alexander. Alexander last season, 34 tackles, 1 sack, 2 interceptions, but the number that's really going to impress you is 15 passes defended among some of the leaders in the entire country. You lose him, and that's a huge loss, as well as Daiwan Griffin is going to be gone off the team as well. 26 tackles, 4 pass defended, 1 sack. You also do lose Nick Troy Fortune, who is gone due to graduation. No more eligibility for him. 9 pass defended, was second on the team, and tied right there with Alexander with 2 interceptions last season. So when you go ahead and take a deep dive at what has gone out of the safety room now, well, Rashad Wisdom was a very talented player last year, 61 tackles, 2 sacks, 4 pass defended. He's gone to the NFL, while Kalichi Nwachukwu will be off due to graduation. No more eligibility for him. 37 tackles, a pass defended last season. So your cornerback room, Zoff Frazier and Davin Martin will be coming back while Denver Harris comes in. He's reportedly had a lot of attitude problems, but coming in a very talented player nonetheless to help boost up this cornerback room for UTSA. And Zach Morris will be transferring in as well. While in your safety room, you get your leading tackler, Ken Robinson, back. 65 tackles, 4 pass defended last season. Elliot Davison is also coming back. He also had 2 picks last season. Marcellus Wilkerson and Jalen Rainey, while Jimmy Wyrick and Jamarius Lewis come in through the portal. And kickers are people too, so let's show them some love. Lucas Dean has graduated, the main punter from last season, so Cale Hogan now takes over. Hopefully that is how you pronounce that first name, while Chase Allen and Tate Sandall will battle it out for the kicking duties. Probably more so Allen than Sandall will get the place kicks here, but nonetheless, they both return to this UTSA team. Apologies for errors and any mispronunciations, but overall, when you take a look at this defense, the linebacker room, I think, is going to be a huge strength of this team. You return a lot of talent, get a lot of talent in through the portal. If the transfer portal pieces and the defensive back room can really step up here, maybe get that passing number to around 215 passing yards allowed per game, maybe even sub 200 this season. Regardless of that, I think UTSA is going to have themselves a pretty solid defense here in 2024, albeit it does have some question marks with the talent lost. But now you dive on into the UTSA football schedule, run through the key really quickly. Any game at home will be underlined, while any game on the road is in italics or that slanted text. Any game in green will be an easy win for the Road Runners, while any game in yellow is a close competitive game that I still see UTSA being able to win, and red is a loss. They get to open up their season with the new addition to FBS this year. Hello, Kennesaw State. The Owls come in and join Conference USA, UTSA's old stopping grounds, and I think it's going to take Kennesaw State some time to adjust. They were not a very good football team last season. There is some solid talent leaving through the portal. They're going to play through some other FCS and even some FBS schools as well. I think it's going to take Kennesaw State a little time to adjust to the FBS level. Again, not a very good football team last season in the FCS ranks. Life in the FBS could be a long, long road to try to finally crack into a bowl game. UTSA will win that one, but I think you lose your next two games against in-state teams. The Texas State Bobcats are a team I absolutely love entering 2024. Haven't gotten to talk about them in a video yet. Kind of spoiler for my next group of 5 prediction video, but I love Texas State. I think G.J. Kinney is one of the bright head coaches that we have in the nation right now. And he is going to excel at Texas State this season. That offense is going to be electric, much like it was last season. The defense sure was not great. They might have trouble slowing down UTSA, but I think overall, Texas State and that offense will be really hard for UTSA to keep up with. The defense will make small improvements. And I got the Bobcats beating the Roadrunners there in week 2. Again, really, really high on the Texas State Bobcats this season, the team that I love out of the Sun Belt Conference ranks. I talked about Trey Moore transferring over to Texas. Well, Trey Moore's going to get a chance to play his former team, UTSA, when the Roadrunners have to go on the road and play in Austin, and I just don't think they're going to come out of there with a win. Quinn Ewers is back, really good group of wide receivers, especially if they can fill gaps on that defensive line. Trey Moore going to be a huge part in doing that. Texas is going to be one of the elite teams in the country this season. That's a loss for me for UTSA. So, okay, the schedule has not started out great, but you do go through non-conference play 2-2 because I do think you get a pretty easy win against Houston Baptist, Houston Christian. I don't know what they're calling themselves right now, but nonetheless, another school in the state of Texas that I think this time UTSA will be able to win that game. They go on the road and play East Carolina for their first game in conference play, and the Pirates, I think, are going to be a much better side than they were last year. Again, it was really, really tough for that team, losing all the talent they did from 2022 to 2023. Now they get a lot more returning production, even some guys coming in through the transfer portal that I think are going to be pretty solid here for this program. But overall, I just think East Carolina lacks what they need to be able to slow down UTSA's offense, especially this run game that I think is going to be really good for the Roadrunners this season, even though the Pirates, I think, have some good fight in them in 2024. Yeah, to me, that is a loss. Well, yes, it is a loss for East Carolina, which means it's a win for UTSA. They start out 3-2 here before you have to go on the road and play Rice after your first bye week of the season. Now, Rice lost a lot of good pieces from last year, most notably in Luke McCaffrey, who has gone off to play in the NFL. And you do lose some other really solid pieces off of that team as well, but you still got a lot of really good offensive pieces there. E.J. Warner is coming in to play quarterback. He was the former quarterback at Temple, and by the way, son of Kurt Warner, still really high on him, even though he hasn't had the greatest success there with the Temple Owls. Got some pretty solid defensive pieces coming back, and I think Rice is going to be a competitive team in the American Athletic Conference this year. And again, I think with Owen McCown seeing his Owen McCown, I don't know why I keep saying Owen McCown seeing his early struggles here with UTSA. Yes, the Roadrunners got a lot of good pieces, but Rice will be competitive this year. I got this one as a loss for the UTSA Roadrunners, so another loss to a team in the state of Texas for UTSA here in 2024. It's a little bit of a theme this season. Then, though, you get to come back home and play the FAU Owls, and I think Tom Herman's Owls are going to be much better than they were in 2023. Tom Herman, we know, is a very good group of 5 head coach. He's excelled at that level before. FAU loses some pieces, but overall got a lot of nice talent coming in there. I just think UTSA is going to be better. I think the offense is going to be better. I think the defense at this point will start to find a little bit more of a rhythm. The transfers are settled in by this point, and the UTSA is going at full steam. That is a Week 8 win in October for the Roadrunners. They got to go on the road and play the Tulsa Golden Hurricane, and even though this is the spot where I could see UTSA tripping up, I do have them beating Tulsa on the road this season. Tulsa, another one of the tricky teams to figure out here in the American Athletic Conference. Overall, though, I still think that's going to be a really solid team. They got a lot of very nice talent. You go ahead and take a look at what their offense has. I mean, a ton of wide receiver overhaul for that team this season. Some really good defensive pieces coming in through the portal in that front 7. But overall, I don't like Tulsa as much as UTSA, so that's a win for me for the Roadrunners. But then you run into what a lot of people are considering the conference favorites here in the American Athletic. That's the Memphis Tigers, and I do think Memphis is going to walk away with the win here. Seth Hennigan is coming back, and UTSA, while they lose an experienced quarterback in Frank Harris, Memphis gets one one back in Seth Hennigan, a ton of speed at the wide receiver position, some really, really good wide receivers. That defense is loaded with talent as well. And I think Ryan Silverfield's team here with the Memphis Tigers probably going to end up being your American Athletic favorites this season. They can push for that spot there in the college football playoff, much like UTSA can as well. But I do have that being a loss for the Roadrunners, which drops them to 5-4. But good news for UTSA is the rest of your schedule is very manageable, and I think you win out the rest of the way. North Texas loses a lot of pieces through the transfer portal, and while they're still going to be competitive this season, I see that being a pretty solid win for UTSA. They're at home. Your final home game is against the Temple Owls. Again, EJ Warner is gone, and I thought Temple was going to be pretty solid last year. They were not, so I do have that being a win for UTSA, as I think Temple, again, lost a lot of talent through the portal this season. And then on the road to Army really is a tricky one to try to figure out with this UTSA team, because Army, very, very good team. And we know UTSA and Army have played before. They've been some really competitive games, but I like UTSA to go on the road and beat Army. I think the offense will be a little too much for the Black Knights defense, and I got 8-4 for the UTSA Roadrunners, while 9-3, maybe even 10-2 is really achievable here. Losing a guy like Frank Harris cannot be overstated. Again, I think McCown is going to give solid quarterback play to this team. Got a lot of really good weapons. They're still going to be one of the better teams in the American Athletic, but you're probably going to have to pull off a couple wins here to get into that college football playoff conversation. Let me know what you guys think about the Roadrunners in the comment section down below. Still going to be a very good team in 2024. Remember to play hard but tailgate harder. And next up, we'll talk about the Arizona State Sun Devils, our final team out of the Big 12. Goodbye.